Please subscribe to this channel and stay with me until the very end, because this story only reveals its true intensity if you hear it all the way through. On the night of our wedding anniversary, my wife decided to invite another man into our bedroom. I still remember that evening perfectly, as if it happened yesterday. The air was heavy, and the entire city seemed to freeze in anticipation of what was about to unfold. I stood there, completely unaware that my life was about to change forever, holding on to a secret of my own that would change hers too. We lived in Vienna, and that night the cold river water looked completely dark under the autumn sky. The sound of distant streetcars echoed off the damp pavement, mixed with the quiet murmur of people walking home. It was the middle of October, and you could smell the wet leaves and roasted chestnuts in the cool air. I had spent my entire day getting our apartment ready for a special night. I bought fresh flowers from the local market, lit candles all around the room, and baked a classic chocolate cake from scratch. I wanted everything to feel perfect, intimate, and absolutely safe for the two of us to share. When she finally walked through the door, she looked beautiful in a soft, shining shirt. But her expression was different than usual. She gave me a calm, almost dangerous smile that made me feel uneasy. She walked up to me and whispered that tonight was going to be very different, because she had asked someone else to join us. My chest tightened, and the room went completely quiet. Instead of reacting with anger, I kept my voice steady and asked her what she meant. She just told me to trust her, but I already knew better than to do that after all the lies she had told me before tonight. A moment later, the front door opened again, and he walked in. He was a good-looking man, wearing an expensive suit, and he acted like he owned the place. Every muscle in my body went tense, and my brain was screaming at me to throw him out. But I forced myself to stay completely quiet and watch. Throughout the evening, he poured wine, played music, and flirted openly with my wife. He tried to control the conversation to make me feel small, and she laughed at his jokes. I just smiled, sipped my drink, and waited patiently for the trap to be sprung on the two of them very soon. What they did not realize was that I already knew everything. I had discovered their secret relationship months ago, not by some lucky accident, but through careful research. I had looked through her bank records, read her text messages, checked her social media, and tracked her calendar. I wrote down every single detail without ever letting her know. I watched her become more confident and careless, thinking she was too smart to get caught. She believed tonight would be her ultimate victory over me, but she was actually walking right into a trap I built with my own hands over the last few months of our terrible marriage together unseen. After we finished eating, I made an excuse to go down to the cellar to grab a special bottle of wine. The basement air was cool and smelled of old stone. Once I was alone, I pulled out my phone and opened a security application that she had no idea I possessed. This app gave me complete control over our entire home automation system, including every camera, every door lock, and every window sensor. I adjusted the settings, preparing to lock down the entire apartment with a single tap. I smiled, took the bottle, and walked back upstairs quietly, ready to end their little game once and for all tonight. Back in the bedroom, I acted completely normal, and the guest had no clue what was coming. Then, I quietly pressed the button on my screen. Instantly, the bright security lights and emergency lamps flooded the entire room. The other man froze, looking around in total confusion. At the same second, the electronic locks clicked shut, sealing every single exit. My wife's confident smile disappeared and panic filled her eyes. She asked me what was happening, and I calmly explained that I was just taking precautions to make sure our anniversary was unforgettable for both of them, leaving no way for either of them to escape my perfect digital cage. For the next hour, I laid out all the evidence I had collected over the past few months. I read their text messages out loud, detailed their secret meetings, and showed the financial records of how she used our money to fund her betrayal. I wanted her to realize how foolish she had been to think she could humiliate me without any consequences. Her guest immediately started begging for mercy, offering weak apologies and trying to explain himself. I recorded every single word they said, capturing their complete confession on both audio and video for later use when the time came to present this to the police and the courts. Soon, the police arrived because I had contacted them ahead of time to make sure everything was handled legally. The evidence was impossible to deny. The other man was legally banned from ever contacting her again, and she faced serious legal charges for her financial fraud and emotional cruelty. Her reputation in our social circle was completely ruined. The friends who used to praise her style and elegance turned their backs on her once they learned the truth. She was forced to pack her bags and move out of the apartment forever, leaving behind everything she had built with lies and deceit during our entire time living here as partners. I stayed in our home completely untouched by the drama or the shame because I had acted with absolute planning. I had let her believe she was in control, which allowed me to prepare a perfect resolution. A few months later, I sold the entire property, which she had spent so much time decorating. I made sure she did not get a single penny from the sale or her past investments. I took back full control of my money, my social life, and every little thing she had once tried to manipulate so cruelly, reclaiming my independence and my pride in a world that was finally completely mine once again. One evening, as I was walking along the river, I spotted her on a bridge. She looked smaller, older, and tired, as if she was finally feeling the weight of her own choices. She saw me and froze, her eyes full of regret, but I said nothing and kept walking. True revenge is not about loud fights or anger. It is about patience, planning, and waiting for the perfect moment to act. I drank a glass of wine alone that night, feeling a deep peace. My quiet silence was the sharpest weapon of all, and I walked away free from the shadows that had held me back for so long.